So, if nobody knows, this is like what the second time we've talked, or the third time we talked, but it'll be the second time for the Reiwa era.
Reiwa.
I'm not a true Godzilla fan. I apologize.
Yep, fake fan exposed. It's over.
I know. But we recorded for like 3 hours, and then your footage went like, I'm not going to work right now. So.
Yep, it's gone.
Oh, well, we're back. It's been a few months since that happened. I forgot most of the stories that you probably told. You probably forgot mine, so it's all right.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of do this again because I also kind of feel like I wasn't all there the first time, so I was like half awake because it was like 11 a.m. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Not to mention we were talking about the anime trilogy, so I mean that's I'm getting war flashbacks. So we have to do that again.
That's the worst part of it.
Man. It is.
It's like that scene in Always Sunny where Danny DeVito's like, "You're making me remember. I don't like thinking about it." Like that's how I feel right now.
I'm the trash man.
I heard they're trying to get him for a cameo in the next Godzilla X Kong because they're like apparently filming in Philly.
Love that. I just want like the whole gang to show up, and then that'd be like an episode where it's like the gang shows up in a MonsterVerse film or something like that.
The gang fights Godzilla.
So the Reiwa era is the experimental era that Toho kind of has. We were in agreement last time we talked about how they're kind of just throwing stuff at the fan and seeing what sticks while doing pretty good movies for the most part. Like their live action stuff has been good, as we talked about, but their animated stuff has not been. So I guess let's start with Shin Godzilla as their first movie. So what did you think about that, buddy?
I love Shin Godzilla. I think it's phenomenal. I got a chance to see this in the theaters. I don't want to say opening weekend because like it was different here in America. So I guess it was like the one weekend that we had it here in October, even though it came out in July in Japan. So it was opening weekend here, and I got a chance to see it midnight screening. It was fantastic. It was a packed theater. I live in the middle of nowhere, so it was mostly like Godzilla dorks just like me, just in a theater watching Shin Godzilla. I went with my mom, and because I was like maybe 12 or 13 at the time, and so she loved it a lot. I liked it a lot. At the time, the hardest part the thing that I struggled with was the fact that it was subbed, and so there was all this text on the screen, and it was a mess with that presentation-wise. But I found that they did what I thought was impossible, and that was make Godzilla scary again and make him fresh and interesting by making it where you never know what he's really going to do next because of the fact that he evolves in that film. And I think that was a really interesting kind of way to tackle Godzilla because we hadn't really seen that. I mean, sure, we've had, Godzillasaurus and then he becomes Godzilla, but this was just a whole different beast in and of itself. So what I liked was that they made it more real and they made it to where it felt like a horror movie. It felt like it was going back to that 1954 roots again. What about you?
I enjoyed it, definitely. There was things that obviously I had like my little nitpicks with that we discussed last time, but for the most part, I loved it. I think I'm with you where it's like the subtitles really, I think really took away from the experience of it overall because when it comes to the Blu-ray of the subtitles, you don't really get what the theatrical experience was because remember how they had like yellow Japanese subtitles over American subtitles, and then sometimes they would have like triple subtitles over. So sometimes you couldn't even tell what they were saying, which was whatever. But I mean, like the way that the story is structured, how it's like, boom, we're in this room, boom, we're in this room, and it's flashing on the screen like you're now in this government room talking to this government person. Now we have to flash over, but it's like that for 5 scenes
Yeah.
in 12 seconds, it was very hard to keep up with, okay, who's this person? Why is he important? Why are we talking to him? It's a movie that I haven't fully appreciated until it was with the Blu-ray with the English dub. Now, while the English dub is not that great, it's at least better. You don't get as much whiplash.
Right. I agree. Yeah, that opening, I guess, I keep wanting to say opening weekend. I'll just say it, opening weekend, I suppose. It was like almost watching a cam rip at times. You know, it was like, I felt like I was watching a bootleg movie because there was just so much on screen and it was so unnecessary. But yeah, one thing that I've always talked about that I just love about that movie, though, is the presentation of it, how at times it feels found footage. I don't know if you remember the teaser trailer that first came out where it was just found footage. And I thought at the time, oh, are we getting like a Cloverfield Godzilla movie where it's all found footage? And that wasn't the case, obviously. But I like what they used, how they would utilize found footage in a few parts, like the beginning with the Coast Guard going on that one boat right before Godzilla's first form wipes it out, as well as the people evacuating with their phones out, you know, and they're filming the whole thing. And really that kind of like made it feel more real, because that's the type of stuff that you see on the news. You know, I hate to bring up modern tragedies that have happened, but a lot of the airplane crashes that have been going on lately, I mean, we're seeing, you know, like iPhone footage, and we're seeing stuff from people on the ground. And so revisiting Shin Godzilla with that type of stuff fresh in my mind, it's like, that is the type of stuff that everyone would be seeing. We wouldn't be seeing these like cinematic wide shots, you know, of this monster looming in the city. We're seeing these like really shaky, borderline unwatchable clips, you know, that have to be like stabilized and post to make sure you can even see what's going on. And I think that adding stuff in like that really helps. You know, historically, this movie was inspired by, I believe it was the Fukushima, as well as the hurricanes, maybe typhoons. I don't know the exact gist of it.
There was like a government spill or something like that, right?
Yeah. And so a lot of the movie's kind of based on the government reaction to that. But also I think it is interesting to see how the media responded to it as well. Yeah. And how the film definitely channels that, you know, 24-hour news type of thing, especially early on. We kind of lose that as the film goes on. But, yeah, definitely, though, the presentation of it, it's one where I think it starts out very, very, very strong. But as it kind of goes on, we start to sort of lose a little bit of focus here and there, and it slowly starts to wane away from the original point of what if Godzilla actually, you know, attacked Japan in real life, you know. And I think that as the film goes on, we slowly move away from that, which is a bit disappointing, but I understand kind of why, because most of the government's gone. You know, he literally wipes them all out. So one thing I wanted to ask you, though, is what did you think of the design of Shin Godzilla? Because it was all over the place. You know, like when that came out, that was the design of Godzilla that Toho was using for toys, for everything. Now it's been kind of replaced by MonsterVerse Minus One. But what are your thoughts on it?
I didn't like that it was like the replacement, so to speak, because it was such a drastically different version of Godzilla. It feels like Shin Godzilla feels more like a spin-off of Godzilla than anything else to me. Like, yes, it's part of the main franchise, but it doesn't feel like it, you know what I mean? As much as like Minus One did. And I think that's because of the design. I love the design. Like, I think that it's really cool. I wish his arms were a little bit bigger. I feel like every single design of Godzilla, they stray away from having his arms be more like arms and more like a T-Rex, which I mean is whatever, but I mean, I liked his mouth. I thought the way that the movie shoots, where it's like from the perspective of like cars and people on the ground, or you have those really wide shots, or there's that one famous shot of when Godzilla's in his fully form and it's up above, and it's that one like by his arm, if you remember, and it's showing like the teeth and the jaggedness. Like you're on your point about how, like, you know, this is the scariest depiction of Godzilla because he's so, I guess, not human. Like, the many interpretations of Godzilla, you can kind of say, like, how his eyes look more human or look more monster-like. This one, it's like it's dead. Like,
it's the most uncanny, yeah.
Yeah, like, there's no thought in this version of Godzilla whatsoever.
I agree completely. I also really like a lot of the sound design choices that they made, which I think actually helps it from feeling less like a Godzilla spin-off movie. I think if they went with a fully original score without, the Ifukube themes, I think it would have felt even more like a spin-off, and like this isn't really Godzilla. But the fact they just reused a lot of the same kind of scores I find to be very fascinating. Like they didn't even like re-record it. They just had the audio and they just threw it in that editing timeline. But I think that was very interesting. At the time, I hadn't seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I just put out a massive retrospective on that series.
It was very good.
Thank you. And that was one where, like, as soon as I watched Evangelion, I'm like, oh, that's the song from Shin Godzilla. It was, the other way around. But I also think, too, it's interesting considering who made this. It's Hideaki Anno, and I find that this... I thought when I first saw Shin Godzilla that it was the most out there kind of kaiju project ever. Then I saw Evangelion, and then I'm like, oh, no, that's way more out there. But I love how he handles giant monsters, and I just think that, like, I'd kill for another kaiju project from him. Doesn't have to be Godzilla, doesn't have to be Gamera, it could be something original, but I love the way that he and his team, because I know there's another director as well. I believe that was Shinji Higuchi who had worked on this as well with him. But
yeah, they split up because one of them did Shin Ultraman and the other one did Shin
Kamen
Rider.
Yeah. But I want to see more of that, because I love how they film stuff where it's that, really like downward kind of angle looking up at them. Godzilla feels so big in this movie. And that is because at the time he was the biggest until Godzilla
He was
Earth.
the biggest.
But, which I remember, it was almost like they did that to like one-up the MonsterVerse, because I think he's like 10 feet taller. Like, it's so petty.
They're like,
almost.
no, this is the bigger one.
But I love Shin Godzilla and how it's shot. There are some complaints that I've heard from Godzilla fans about it being paced very weird, which I do agree. I do think that, like, that kind of... I'd say, I guess, spoilers, but if you're listening to this, you've probably seen Shin Godzilla. It's right after the Prime Minister is killed. It's like, the movie just grinds to a screeching halt, and because everyone's trying to figure out, like, what do we do now? And to me, it's like, if we just kind of, like, chop that just a little bit and kind of sped it up, it would have been, like, a perfect Godzilla movie, for me at least, I don't know, but that's probably my only gripe. That and the subtitles, I'd kill for a really good dub.
The thing that I agree with you is that pacing there in the middle when the Prime Minister dies. And I think it's because we've seen Godzilla get frozen before in the past, so it's nothing that's like... It's like, yeah, the way they talk is new, or the way that they're going to do it freeze-wise is new, but it's still kind of like, all right, we've already kind of seen this. It's just the way that they do it is a little bit different. So I think if it would have been like Minus One, where it's like, oh, we're gonna sink them and then we'll see where we'll go from there, like it's different, so it's more interesting. I think that was the main issue. This one, you feel that more than anything. There's that complaint of how a Godzilla movie's paced, where it's like Godzilla comes, he wrecks the thing, then the people have their moment where they decide what to do with Godzilla or the other kaiju he's fighting. This one, you feel that the most, of like how it just grinds to a halt. And then my other problem with the movie was, I understand it's the most out there depiction of Godzilla, and I'm fine with it if it stays this way, but I did not like the laser beams coming out of his tail or his spines. Like, I understand it's very anime-like, like the way that it's shot, the way that the people are, it's very anime-like. But I just don't like that being an added trait to Godzilla. Like, all of a sudden he's got stuff coming out of his spines and his tail's got a mind of its own. And like, I didn't mind it coming out of his mouth. Like, his breath is always changed over time or gotten more powerful. Like, you think of Destroyer, how his breath kind of gets more and more powerful as that movie gets on, or something like like Tokyo SOS or whatever, like that. Those ones, his breath kind of gets more powerful. Or Final Wars, when he charges it up and shoots it at the meteorite or whatever. And this one, I don't know. I thought it was cool when the laser happened out of his mouth and his his mouth opens like Pac-Man and stuff, and it's getting crazy. You're like, whoa, this is scary and freaky, especially how they do it, where it's like he like lasers the ground and it just turns to mush, and then he like chops like 50 buildings in half. I loved that in the theater. It was glorious. I just thought like the stuff coming out of his tail and his spines was a bit overpowered and a little bit silly, if I just had to be honest.
That's fine. Yeah, I think that like if we never see that again, wonderful, because it's just for Shin Godzilla. I agree with you. Yeah, I think if we saw that in like a future installment, it'd be kind of like, okay, but I'm cool with it just in Shin Godzilla because it's almost like a separate character in and of itself. It's like there's Godzilla and then there's Shin Godzilla. That's kind of mentally how I kind of like differentiate some of them. Like, it's still cool, but it's like, I don't know. I think
it's like when he talks in a certain movie, or when when in Hedorah when he flies, it's like, okay, if it's just in this one, whatever. Yeah. But if it comes back, then it's like,
then it's a problem. Yeah.
All right.
I do think too, because there is one complaint that a lot of people have where it's the characters are boring, which then that's always, people say, well, it's a critique of the Japanese government and how there's so many people, involved with all these subcommittees, all that type of stuff, which I do agree with that. I think that it's okay that we don't have the most interesting characters since more of the focus is on Godzilla. Like, we never get a conversation that's not about Godzilla unless it's about like, oh, what are the political ramifications of it, which again, I'm cool with that. But part of me is like, I wish that there were more characters that were just a little bit more memorable. And what I mean is when you look at Shin Ultraman, like each character in like the Science Patrol is just so memorable with each of the like the little quirks that they do. Even if you don't really remember their name, you can still picture like the specific things that they do. And like, yeah, we get the one guy in Shin Godzilla with like the pink towel kind of around his neck, and we get the one woman who just happens to know a lot about, like, I think she knew about like wolves, like, and she's
like deadpan the whole time too.
Yeah. Like, we do get some of that, but I just wish that we had a little bit more of an interesting main character, just as like beyond just like, I want to serve the people and be the model politician. Like, I just wish that we had just a little bit more something to his character. But again, I get it. We got to focus on Godzilla, but yeah.
No, I agree, because I mean, when you think about movies in the past or movies to come, there's always that one character that sticks out. And in this, it's like a character will stick out because they did something or they said one little line. It's not that throughout the whole movie they stuck out. It's like, I think about the guy that like freaked out randomly in the movie and starts moving his arms. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know what he was. I don't even know what he did in the movie, if I remember correctly, but that's all I remember about him. You don't remember like Dr. Shiragami or like, the woman from Godzilla Against Mechagodzilla, or Megaguirus, how she jumps on the back of Godzilla. I agree.
Don
there's
Fry.
Not that. Yeah, exactly. Don Fry. Yeah, Captain Gordon.
Yeah.
You don't remember a character for being a character in this movie. Just kind of like, okay, yeah, there's one costume that sticks out. There's the one lady that's deadpan the whole time. It's,
Right. Yeah. No, I do think, though, that it is interesting how they were planning on doing a sequel. And I think I might have told you this before. It was called Godzilla's Counterattack, or Shin Godzilla's Counterattack, where it would have been an all-out, like, destroy all monsters kind of thing, where it would be Shin Godzilla battling all these, like, reinterpretations of Toho monsters. And it was made because Hideaki Anno was, like, mad that some people didn't like that it wasn't, like, a monster brawl, and people thought it was too serious. And so his intention was, well, I'm just going to make a movie for no one and just, like, take it completely off the rails. And obviously, they made Minus One instead. But there's that small part of me that's like, I wish we could have gotten to see, even like as like a 5-minute, like short film, just something like that. Because it would be interesting to see Shin Godzilla battle another monster, just because of how almost fragile he seems at times. When he like stays in one spot and just kind of lumbers around.
Yeah, it would be interesting, but it makes Shin Godzilla a lot more special. And there's that discussion of like, well, Shin Godzilla, it's its own movie, it's its own interpretation of it. There's nothing that quite ruins it. There's that stinger of an ending where it's got the craziest ending of any Godzilla movie, where it's, the shot that pans up his tail and then it's like, whoa, Godzilla humans or Godzilla xenomorphs? It's like, what the heck? like our theater was freaking out. Like everyone's like, "What? Like what was that?"
Yeah. No, I love that ending. I think that might be my favorite ending to any Godzilla movie ever. I think it's the most memorable, that's for sure. I mean, I can't really think of any other like final image on a Godzilla movie that is as impactful, except maybe Terror of Mechagodzilla when he's going off into the ocean as the sun sets. Like, but even then, like that's just because I'm a huge fan of like the Showa era. So it's like beyond that, it's like
I like Final Wars' final shot, how it's him and Minya going in the sunset. I love that.
That one's great too. But it's like in terms of like a horror, almost like stinger. Like it's almost like in slasher movies when the villain is killed, you know, at the end, but then like the last shot is him like opening up his eyes and it's like the close up on it. Like that's almost what that feels like to me. It's like, God, they were this close to like extinction of the human race because he was evolving to become a human, which is one of the wildest hypotheticals ever. But it's ideas like that I just love.
And there was even like crazier ones where like I don't know if you like I think it's maybe in an art book or maybe like behind the scenes, but like they were gonna have like Godzilla flying with wings, other stuff. It's like whoa, like they were ready to go all out.
Yeah, he like became like a human woman almost. Like there's even that, which is really nuts. I'll send you some of that stuff where it's like
okay, I haven't seen that,
and it looks almost like cosplay in a way. Like it's kind of interesting with like the design because it looked like a normal human woman, but then she had like a frill kind of thing here, and then it had like the spines and everything. It was really interesting. They wanted to go more cosmic, I think, with it, but then they kind of reined it back in, thank God. But
yeah, it's one of those things. I think like Shin Godzilla, for all it is, because we haven't even really talked about like the Godzilla scenes when we think about it. But I mean, for what it is, I really love it. But it's not in my top 5 for me personally. But at the time, I absolutely adored it. I think like coming off of 2014 was that grand return of Godzilla. Like it felt like it. Shin Godzilla felt like Toho had been doing Godzilla all this time because there really wasn't like that moment of like, oh, Godzilla's back. This is Toho's grand debut of Godzilla back. Because Shin Godzilla just starts and it's like, oh, Godzilla's here, I guess, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, I do think too it's kind of shocking almost to have like the first image of Godzilla in your movie be just a tail just in the ocean, and then the second image be he's waddling through the streets like destroying boats while looking this like googly-eyed like monster. And that's kind of ballsy is your way of like reintroducing Godzilla, you know, from Japan's point of view. But I loved it. I was so surprised when I saw that. I thought it was like another monster at first because I had no clue what it was even supposed to be.
It was so different. I mean, like, you ever watch like the Giant Claw or whatever? Like one of those like goofy movies. It's like, what? Like, I kind of like turned to my dad and my friend, and I was just like, what the heck are we like? What? This is unexpected.
I do like though how it evolves into what we know as Godzilla. You know, I think that was very intelligent. Which I thought it was funny. I read up on this while doing research for this, you know, for like my retrospective, and so originally Toho didn't want to do that. They just wanted it to be normal Godzilla throughout the whole movie. But Hideaki Anno went to Bandai and pitched the idea to them. And Bandai was like, oh, this is genius. And then they told Toho, look, if you do this, we could sell more toys. And then right there, Toho was like, all right, we're in. And that's all it really took to convince them. So, but I love that as a concept. I think that it works for Shin Godzilla. Minus One, kind of jumping the gun a little bit, also does that in a really interesting way. Where he evolves only once, but it works, I think. So I don't mind seeing Godzilla evolve.
But yeah, like you were saying, like the evolving, it's something that's happened, so it's nothing new. It was just done in a different way, so it's kind of interesting. I think that this has my favorite Godzilla rampage moment. Yeah. In the beginning when he just like shows up and he's just boom, he's right there. And everyone's panicking. The shots that the director chose for this movie, like he took a page out of Gareth Edwards of showing scale, but on a better level, in my opinion. Like Gareth Edwards always showed it from a human perspective, and that was fine, but it was always taken from like a military level or something where the average person couldn't really see some of the shots or whatever.
Right.
Shin Godzilla did the opposite, where it was like taking it from the houses or whatever, and they did so many cool things with, like you were saying, how it's supposed to be a realistic depiction. One of my favorites is the one where it just shows like a roof with the clay roof on it.
Yeah,
and
the shingles. They're like bouncing. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear the thud, and then it starts going down.
It's like that Jurassic Park scene with the water. You know, the water in the cup as the T-Rex comes near. It's so interesting how they blended practical kind of like elements, like miniatures, with the CGI Godzilla. They tried using a like an animatronic kind of thing. Didn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was a genius move to just make it look like a man in a suit and try to replicate practical effects, because our eyes are almost like trained when we see something in a movie to go, oh, it looks like an effect, like that looks more real, even though it isn't. And I love though how, you know, when he moves, like there's this one scene during the city attack at night when he like whips his whole body around, and it looks like it's a person in a suit with the way that they like how they first kind of like turn their shoulders and then their head. It's like everything about that animation just felt so fluid, and I get a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was mocapped, so they probably had the guy in the mocap just do that. But I think if you're gonna have a CG Godzilla, mocap is the way to go, and I think that almost if you treat this like a prototype for future Toho movies, I hope they follow Shin Godzilla, you know, later down the road, because like this is a wonderful way to execute a CGI Godzilla on screen.
Yeah, it's when you think about it, like we're coming on 2026, so this movie's almost 10 years old now.
I feel old.
Like, I know, me too, man. Tell me about it. And I mean, like you said, the graphics still hold up. There's shots and there's scenes that we're still debating of, oh, is that like a real shot or is that a digital shot? Like I think about the shot of the car when the person just like for social media or whatever, and it's zooming by Godzilla's foot, and it's all this dust and debris. Like you can't tell if that's like a suit or like an animatronic,
right,
or CG. Like they still got so many moments in that movie where you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's seriously one of the few movies where like when I saw it in theaters, it was like, this feels real. You know, like this, like, you know, you could say that about a lot of, you know, I guess movies at the time, you know, were like, oh, it felt so tangible. But with this, it was just like the way everything was handled. It was, I wonder how much, and now that I've actually gone to university for, you know, media communication, news, broadcasting, that type of stuff. And so for me, it's like, when I watch this, it's like, did they get someone from broadcasting to like come in and like explain to them, like, here's, you know, we do things X, Y, Z. I don't know. Everything about it just felt way more tangible than any other Godzilla movie I'd ever seen. So I adore it. My favorite scene is probably when they're trying to get the coolant in his mouth, and they're just like, he's just stomping through all the guys. I thought that was phenomenal in like almost like a dark humor kind of way, because it's just like so many lives are lost, but still.
I love my favorite shot is the one where they're using, like, they keep upgrading their bullet size and their capacity, and finally they just start using rockets.
Yeah.
And it's that scene when they blast his head and all the smoke covers it, and then he like erupts out of the smoke, and it's that goofy shot of like his eyeball, but it looks freaky in that one shot. So I really like that one.
Yeah, it's all around, I think, a phenomenal movie. I think I told you this before, but I don't think it's, you know, on video or whatever. I don't think we have it. But my buddy, his mom is like a teacher in high school. Not anymore, but she retired, and so, but she was when the film came out, and she did a class where it was like you consume a piece of media from a specific culture. And so for Japan, she chose Shin Godzilla and had all of her students watch it in class and then give a report on it and everything, and like write like an essay, which I thought would just be the coolest in-class experience ever. You know, having to watch
cool.
Shin Godzilla in class. But
so here's my funny story with it, and then we can move on to the next movie. But my funny story when it comes to this movie is that my buddy Jace that I do the channel with, we were just starting to become like really good friends. And so I was introducing some of the old Godzilla movies to him and stuff, because he had like played Godzilla PlayStation 4, and he was like, this is all right. Like, I mean, I don't really get it, but, you know, whatever. So then I was freaking out because the new one, and this is big to us Godzilla fans, but to him it's like, what's so big about it? And I'm like, dude, it's like the first one in so long, except for Japan. And I'm like, why don't you come with me and my dad, and you can take your dad too, and we can all have fun together. And I failed to look up that it was in Japanese because before, Godzilla movies had always been sort of Americanized, whether they had a dub or they had some extra English scenes in the theater. This was the first Godzilla movie in American theaters that was not changed at all. Like, remember how they were going to change it like to Godzilla Resurgence, and then they changed it back at Toho's insistence to just Shin Godzilla, which is great. But going into the theater, my dad is like, this is in English, right, Zeth? And I'm like, yeah, like all the other ones had in the past, like why would this be any different? And then it sits down, it's the Shin Godzilla, like one of the toughest movies to see in a theater in subtitles, and it's like, well, they never trusted me after that.
Yeah, it's I'm someone that loves subtitles. In fact, if it was up to me, if I was president of the world, I would have it where every movie has subtitles regardless, even if it's in English. That'd be my first executive order.
You're one of those weirdos.
Oh yeah, I don't care. I watch it with subtitles no matter what. I think I'm just going deaf. I think might be my problem. I don't know.
You're getting old, man.
What?
You're getting old.
What? But yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it one bit. But this was like, oh, I do mind it. So as like a point to show, like, if I noticed, that's when that you overstepped your boundaries of subtitles, because good Lord.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But all right, so Shin Godzilla comes out, raging success. Toho is like, all right, cool, Godzilla's back. We have Godzilla King of the Monsters to look forward to here soon. In the meantime, however, Toho did something interesting. They were like, hey, let's make an anime about Godzilla, which is a great idea in my opinion.
Yeah,
amazing,
you can do anything
phenomenal.
With it.
Yeah, we had animated series to point to. Now the Hanna-Barbera shows, like, but the Godzilla animated series, the one with TriStar, is actually pretty decent. So it's like, this could actually work if they wanted to do like Monster of the Week with each episode. Then they announced it was going to be like a trilogy of films to Netflix. Thank God, because I think I would have had to kill myself if I watched these in a theater.
Yeah. They would have had to have me in a straitjacket. It would have been
exactly.
Bad. I remember when this was announced, and I was kind of like, because I wasn't huge into anime at that point in time. I was like still kind of like, whatever. But when it did come out on Netflix, I sat down, I put it on. I think I fell asleep 30 minutes in, and I was just like, you know what, I'll try another day. And then I think I tried it again like years after the fact, and I was like, this is atrocious. This is as bad as people say it is. And yeah. What's your story with this series? Because oh boy.
I mean, it came out. It was one of those movies that, like, sadly, it was like, I watched it because it was Godzilla. Like, if it wasn't, I wouldn't. Like, I didn't even waste my time on the Gamera Rebirth series. I hate this kind of animation style where it's like this 3D, but then we're gonna cell shade it and make it look like a hand. Like, I think it's very lazy.
It looks
I think
cheap.
Yeah, and while the other Godzilla anime took care of that issue, the trilogy of anime films just are bad. Like, there's cool ideas at play, like how Godzilla killed off life in the beginning of the first movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And how they paid attention to classic monsters that never had been seen. Like Dagora, I think, was in it. Biollante, I think Anguirus shows up in the beginning. Like, just different monsters that, like, nobody really remembers except for the hardcore fans. But
Orga was in it right at the start, I think, too. Like Kamacuras.
Was he?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because I remember that was one of the first Orga appearances in a while. But yeah, no, that immediately got me hooked, though. 'Cause it's like, okay, it's made by fans. And from my understanding, fans, like, the guys that made it were like, oh, let's have a bunch of, like, fight scenes and stuff and make it, like, the dream Godzilla anime project that everyone wants. And Toho was like, no, make it more character-driven. That's, like, an order. And then they went, oh.
Yeah, but the characters suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
The story sucks.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what the story is.
I remember it being like, okay, I'll try my best to summarize it to the best of my ability, but if I mess up, like, no one's going to get mad because I don't think anyone actually remembers this.
I remember pregnant Mothra fairies, and that's when I was like, okay, someone's fetish is...
I think Godzilla attacks with a bunch of monsters, and then, like, they all fight, but we never see it because whatever. And the main character, he evacuates Earth with his family, and then they go into space, and then somehow, like, time goes by faster on Earth, so the ecosystem changes to be Godzilla-centric, which is why, like, there's, like, the servums where they, like, fly around, and they're, like, the Godzilla pterodactyl things. And then the humans are like, okay, Godzilla's got to be dead now, because it's been however many years, but the main character's somehow still alive. And he's like 20, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go down to Earth, and then we find out that it's even worse somehow, and like there's no point really, but then like they still fight Godzilla, and they kill him at the end of the first movie, but then it turns out that was just one of the offspring, and that the OG Godzilla is like as tall as like a mountain, like he's like ginormous.
Yeah, that's where the first one ends, where it's like all of a sudden he pops out of nowhere, he's like, I'm the big one.
Yeah, I'm the real one, and it's like, oh, so what was the point of any of this? And then the second movie, they go to a city, and they're like, it's Mechagodzilla City, and then we never see them fight Mechagodzilla. And then they kind of do some interesting body horror stuff, but it's never really explored, where, like, Mechagodzilla tries to, like, take over human bodies and, like do, like, Tetsuo the Iron Man type stuff with them. But we never see much of it. Like, it just kind of, like, happens after a few seconds. You're looking at me like I'm, like, making this up, but I promise.
Dude, I do not remember any of this.
And then the third movie was, there's like a King Ghidorah cult, and that's where the pregnant Mothra fairies were involved, because Void Ghidorah is like a thing, I guess, and it's basically just like a cosmic version of King Ghidorah, which is cool on paper, but it's like, it's so bad. And then like we see them kind of like fight for a bit, but fight is in quotations because he just kind of like wraps himself around Godzilla, and then there's like lights, and then that's the end of the anime trilogy. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it. There goes like what was that, like 5 hours worth of like content? It was terrible. So that's,
well, most of it was just like people on the ground talking, and like the conversations weren't interesting. Like, and then once you have like pregnant Mothra, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, it made no sense. I think if they would have just done a very standard Godzilla, you know, like wipes out Earth, and then it becomes post-apocalyptic. I think when you add in like, oh, we're in space now, and there's a Mechagodzilla city, like you're kind of ruining it. And I think what it should have been was like, okay, it's post-apocalyptic, and then each episode follows the humans trying to avoid one specific classic Godzilla monster, whether it be like Hedorah, which, by the way, the anime trilogy version of Hedorah is crazy, and it's only in like the books. It's not in the actual thing.
Isn't it pretty cool? Yeah.
Yeah, China made a bioweapon called Hedorah to fight Anguirus from Rodan, and it kills Anguirus from Rodan, but then it becomes like the Blob, and it starts like consuming all of China. Like, and then I don't know what happened to it after the fact, but it's like, that's nuts. Like, make that like a movie. You know, I'll watch that, but
Godzilla Minus 2. That's exactly what we need to do.
That'd be sick, actually. If they do use Hedorah, I'll be the happiest Godzilla fan ever. But
they need to make him fly, though.
Yeah. I bet they could.
They need to make Godzilla fly. They need to make Godzilla fly.
Oh, Godzilla fly.
Yeah, they need to make Godzilla fly.
Okay. But I was just say like Hedorah. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like one of his characteristics. Okay, they can do that.
Well, yeah. No, you need to have Godzilla taken off.
But
have the triumphant, funny music.
There's just so much like missed potential with the anime trilogy, where it's like there's awesome ideas in place, like in Mechagodzilla City. You know, like let's make it where the city that Godzilla's attacking is actively like using defenses against him. Cool, make it interesting, and they never do. Like, it's, I don't know. I think that this is gonna sound really mean. I think it's gonna be the meanest thing I've ever said, but it's like, if you can make Godzilla boring, I don't think that you should be a filmmaker. Genuinely. Like, how do you make a giant monster who destroys buildings and fights other monsters boring? I don't know how you can do that. And I get some of it's because of studio interference, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, I agree. Like, and it's not even something where Godzilla doesn't work in animation or with kind of a futuristic storyline like this. Like, it works. You just have to make it more interesting, not have interesting ideas. It's a lot like the Doctor Strange multiverse movie, where it's like there's interesting things in that movie, but it's held together by a shoestring of a story and characters that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the anime trilogy.
They did my boy Black Bolt dirty, but we're going to leave it at that. Otherwise, I'm going to start ranting about that. I'm so mad. Okay. But, yeah, no, it just, there's so much about that, like the anime trilogy, where it's just like, I see where, like, that could be interesting. That could be cool. That could be, you know, but it's just something about it just never clicks. There's never that moment where it's like, I get it now. And, you know, because you could say that about almost any movie in the Godzilla franchise. Even Godzilla's Revenge. You know, it's like, okay, you know what? It's a fun kids movie with an anti-bullying message. You know, it's like, at least there's like, that's the appeal. I can see that, you know. But it's like with this, it's like, I don't know why anyone would want to say, you know, hey, you want to come over and watch the Godzilla anime trilogy? It's like, you know what? I think I'd rather be tortured, like genuinely. Like, I'm good.
It's very, very bad. Like, it's not even like a question about it. It's when it comes to Godzilla, the series, like I'm gonna be when I do my video covering those anime trilogy and the series, because I'm just gonna lump them all together. It's literally gonna be called the worst of Godzilla, because the anime trilogy and the series that we're gonna discuss next is the worst of Godzilla. TriStar's Godzilla at least has a good beginning. The first 20 minutes are like one of the best beginnings to any monster movies of all time. The anime trilogy, and it's a waste of time, waste of money, waste of Netflix subscription, waste of everything.
It's the worst kind of bad, because it's like you can't even do like a funny, like nostalgia critic type of review about it, because there's nothing to like make jokes about. Like there's not, it just exists. It's like looking at like paint dry. Like I don't know. Like there's nothing where it's like, okay, I'm being too mean. We'll cut it right there.
Yeah. So the anime series. Now, I don't remember when this came out, because like the anime trilogy, this is a fever dream. I don't even remember anything about this one, because I don't even know if I finished it. I just remember that you had Jet Jaguar, which was cool. Mm-hmm. Godzilla's sort of evolving like Shin Godzilla, but it's more confusing than anything else.
Anguirus was
like
in
he's
it.
a fish. Oh yeah, Anguirus was in it.
And Rodan is in it for a little bit, and I like how they use the Rodan swarm. That's one of my favorite Rodan aspects. But yeah, and there's something about like nuclear physics. Like I don't know, man. I watched this on a plane to Europe, and I was on medication because I get like panic attacks on planes. So this was just a fever dream. So I don't even remember if half the stuff even happened, but I don't know. It's
Wasn't Gabbert in this?
Yes, because I have his toy somewhere. Is it near me? I don't see him. I know I got him somewhere. Oh, but I got this one. Hold on.
Oh, don't. Is it the Manda?
No, it's the blue one. I found this in a Target in Wisconsin.
Oh, wait. I think I got one. Let me see.
Yeah, this is a Playmates one.
Oh, yeah. I got the Bandai one, I think. This is the main form.
I have that one too. I think he's up on my Godzilla shelf. But yeah, I got this guy. So I don't even know why. I think I just bought this because I was just surprised I even saw it in like a Target. But yeah, it's
yeah. But like,
cool
what is he
looking,
supposed to be?
Blue Godzilla, I think. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
I don't. Oh wait, I got this guy too. See, a lot of my least
this
favorite
guy's got
figures,
some thick thighs.
A lot of my least favorite figures just go on the shelf because I don't really care much. Like they just rot on the shelf next to me. So yeah, Jet Jaguar. And that's about it. I think, and I got the Ultima Godzilla as well somewhere, but.
Dude, look at this. Like, you thought, like, Godzilla 2014 had some thighs? Like,
yeah.
Holy... Like, this guy needs to go to, like, Weight Watchers.
That was Zempic. But, yeah, like, I don't know. There's interesting ideas, but it's also, like, you're trying too hard to make it more, like, complicated than it really needs to be with the anime trilogy. I think that's my general problem with it. It's like, just give us the Monster of the Week format. Like, that's all we really want, you know? Like,
I don't know why so many shows do this, where it's like X-Files like got to that point too, or like Lost, where it's like monster of the week or like problem of the day. I don't understand why TV shows do that so much. There's a format. Godzilla's the series, or what the heck is this show even called? I forgot what this
Singular
Godzilla show is
point.
called.
Singular point.
Singular point. See, when you have me forgetting the show names, that's when you know you messed up. But yeah, like, why didn't they have like Godzilla, like all of a like maybe even you can have it where like Godzilla's evolving, but like why not have it where like Rodan shows up in the first episode?
Yep.
Godzilla clobbers him, even though he's like a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Then so on. It's stupid.
Yeah. It's you know, like it's like if you want to be like Evangelion, where like it starts out monster of the week and then you go gradually into like the whole chaotic nuclear physics stuff, it's like you could do that, you know, but it's like just built, like, have a status quo first before you break the status quo, because it's like this show starts and I don't know what's even happening. So that might be my biggest issue with it for sure, is that it's all over the place, much like the Reiwa era, you know, like there's cool moments here and there, but you just have to do a lot of like kind of sifting through not so interesting stuff.
Garbage. Yeah, it's interesting. This has got like some of the best Godzilla stuff, and then it's got the worst Godzilla stuff. It's not even kind of like a flat line. It's very highs and very lows. It's, I don't know. What's next? So -1 now. Quite literally the best Godzilla movie. Quite literally, no arguments there. Thoughts? We talked about it a lot last time.
Masterpiece. I saw it 7 times in theaters. The first time was, well, first off, I should say that when the trailer came out, I was kind of like, yeah, it looks kind of interesting. You know, like it's a period piece Godzilla movie, but I was just kind of like, I don't know, I'll see it. But, you know, I wasn't like, I didn't have super high expectations. Like, if I knew it was going to be as good as it was, I would have been beyond hyped. But it was just sort of this feeling of like, it could be pretty cool. And so it was like a Thursday in December, and my buddy Nick, who's really into Godzilla, I texted him, I'm like, hey, you want to go see a movie today? He's like, sure, why not? And so I checked what was showing, and it was Godzilla -1, and we're like, all right, let's just go see it. And there were so many points where we had borderline religious experiences in the theater. Like, the part I'm going to mention that made us both kind of like turn to each other and be like, this is peak right here, is right when they launched the 2 battleships to like go do like the maneuver against Godzilla to like wrap around him, and the military march starts playing. We were like just both like kicking our feet to like the melody of it. We're like looking at each other like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Oh my god. I had goosebumps in the theater. I have it right now just recalling this. But so after that happened, we're like, this was the best Godzilla movie ever. It was so good. And then I took my girlfriend to see it, and she cried at the ending. She thought it was like the greatest movie of all time. My brother came home from the Navy, which if you're ever going to show someone in the Navy a movie, it's like this is one of them. I mean, like there's so many great naval ships, you know. And so him and I, we saw it. He loved it. Took my dad to see it. He loved it. Took my mom to see it, who loves World War II and history and all that type of stuff. She loved it. And I think I saw it like on my own like twice after that too, just to be like, you know, I'd be like, well, it's Tuesday, $5 movies. I'll see you guys in a couple hours. And so I'd go see -1. But yeah, I mean, it just completely blew me away. And it was one of those where it felt like an event when it came out. And it felt like everyone was like trying to use word of mouth to get other people to see it, because there wasn't really any marketing. It just kind of was like plopped on us, and it was like, well, here you go, here's the next Godzilla movie. I remember I was doing a music video shoot for this ska band in Milwaukee, and while we were kind of like, while I was setting up all the gear and everything, we were talking about the movie, and they're like, so has anyone seen the new Godzilla movie? And they're like, there's a new Godzilla movie, and the lead singer had seen it, and like a couple others had, and so they were like being like, no, you don't get it, like this is like the greatest movie of all time, like, and it was like, and they sold everyone on it. But it was just like, it felt like a thing where it's like, if you saw it, you were in the know, and you had to be in like the know to know, like really, because the marketing, while fine, didn't do the film justice, because it's like, how do you market the greatest movie ever made, genuinely? Like, so I don't know. Like, there's so many key moments in there. We'll get into it. I'm curious, though, on your thoughts.
when it was announced, because usually when a Godzilla movie is like announced, I can keep with it really, really good. Like when they are like, all right, the trailer's dropping at this time, I will stay up till 3 a.m. till that trailer drops. Like I am that big of a fan. So when this one dropped, I was really excited because there was showing things that they had never shown Godzilla doing before, like how the first teaser shows just like his foot, and it's crushing the cement, and all the people go flying, and they're getting crushed. Like, they've shown Godzilla kill people before, but not to this extent, like violently. So I was excited for that. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to get something amazing, because my problem with Shin Godzilla is that it's a today piece. And, you know, we've got enough nukes and bombs and stuff like that to take care of something like that. I understand there's the people question, but it's like, dude, if you wanted to set a nuke to Godzilla, it would nuke Godzilla. So to put it back in time, during World War II, or World War II?
World War II, post-World War II, yep.
Yeah, it was a fascinating idea. I was like, oh, finally, like we're doing this again. Like, this is interesting. But yeah, I didn't know the extent of it. I was obviously excited for it. I pre-purchased tickets a month in advance when they went on sale here in America. Took some buddies, went with my dad, and we all sat in the IMAX for the, I forget if it was like a week or a month earlier than everybody else. It was one of those fan screenings that you could go to. It was awesome because my dad was like, you don't have to purchase tickets. No one's going to be in the theater with us. Whatever. It's a Japanese. They're not even like marketing or whatever. Dude, we get to that theater. It was packed. I was like, aren't you glad aren't you glad now? And, you know, it was such a great experience. Like, I think of all the great experiences I've had in theaters where, like, Avengers 1, I will never forget seeing that opening night, and like the theater, the way it felt with everybody, how excited everybody was. It felt like that from Minus One, how everyone was decked out in their Godzilla shirts, women, old women, young guys like us, little kids, girls, like every sort of Godzilla fan was in the theater. Mm-hmm. And everyone was so respectful too. Like, you couldn't hear anyone complaining. Like, there was a few like gasps and shocks or like clapping every once in a while, but it wasn't like in a Marvel movie where it's like you couldn't hear certain things. Everyone was so respectful. And then once the final shot of like Godzilla Minus One, that's when like everyone stood up and started applauding and gave it a standing ovation. It quite literally like was one of the best experiences I've had in a movie theater. And then seeing it in IMAX too, like some of the shots, like like the ship part. Yeah. I knew then this was going to be one of the best Godzilla movies. I didn't know the extent of it, but I was like, oh my gosh, when the ship was chasing Godzilla and you're right there and Godzilla's like the size of a building in front of you on the screen, it's like, holy crap, this is amazing.
Yeah. Full transparency and a little bit of a confession from someone who's a big film nerd. I have never seen a movie in IMAX because we don't have any by us. We don't have any. The closest one is maybe an hour and a half drive. So,
dang.
Yeah, I've never
this
been
would
to
have been
IMAX.
So worth it. It was an hour drive for us, so
I
that
did
was a
see
bit
this.
of a drive.
We have this thing at Marcus. I don't know if you got Marcus Theaters out by you, but we've got this like thing where it's like there's like the main screen, and then they use some technology, I don't know what it is, to like extend it to the sides of like the theater.
Oh,
and
it's like 4D, right? Is that what it's called? 4X?
It's called something like DLX. I don't know. But like it was totally gimmicky, and there were a few parts where it kind of like threw me off because it was like, you know, there are some things that happen in like this side of the screen, and so you'd see Godzilla like be here and then he'd just be here all of a sudden. But that was like the closest I've ever gotten to like IMAX. But I'd love to see anything in IMAX. I don't care, but it's just we don't have any theaters by us, so.
That's a shame, because this one was definitely worth it. Like, I would have driven another hour to see this in the IMAX again, because it did something. Because like every time a Godzilla movie comes out, it feels like every time you mention it, it's like, oh, this is Godzilla, the most realistic depiction, or this is the most scary depiction of Godzilla, or this is the most goofy depiction of Godzilla. we haven't gotten that. We haven't in a while, and X Kong did it, and this one did it, where it's like Godzilla's cool again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make Godzilla the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
With Godzilla X Kong, where he's just beating up foes every 5 seconds and tearing them up. Love that to death, because it's like Final Wars, where they just make him an unstoppable beast.
Right.
And then -1, too, where it's like, I'm going to give you stuff you've never seen with Godzilla, where it's just going to be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those where, like, there's so many scenes where I've never felt this before when watching a Godzilla movie, but you're like, oh my god, I hope the humans are okay.
Exactly,
you know, like when she's like, when Noriko's like hanging out of the train as he has like the train in his mouth, you're like, dear God, please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. You know, like there are so many times where you're rooting for the humans, and it's like, I never really feel that way. You know, like there are some, you know, like Godzilla 54, where you're more like, oh my God, this is happening. Or like Shin Godzilla, you know, where you're more kind of like mortified at it, but you're still, there's like that little part of like your Neanderthal brain where you're like, this is still pretty cool. You know, like I like what I'm seeing. But here it was like, oh my God, I hate Godzilla and I want him to lose. You know, it's like this, I really felt like that. GMK, you know, you kind of feel that here and there for sure. But
it's still funny, though, when he takes out the girl in the hospital.
Yeah, the hospital is so good, yeah. But this is one where it's like, oh my God. Like that, the scene that, for me, it's like one of the best Godzilla scenes ever, is where there's the news reporters on the roof of that building, and they're like describing it, and then Godzilla's like lumbering around, he like whips out, he destroys that building over here, and then he sets his eyes on them, and it's like, dude, it's so terrifying.
In IMAX, when that shot continues and the building comes up underneath them and it starts looming down, in IMAX, it was like, holy crap, like you were bracing your seat. It felt like you were there. There's so much to gush about this movie, because it's like every single shot and frame it was meant to be in this movie. Right. There is not a single part in this movie I can say trim up, take out, trim the fat here in this part. There's not a single part in this. The only thing I guess is like maybe that ending when Godzilla's tissue is like beating to life.
Yeah.
That's it, maybe.
My two gripes are, it's that scene, because then it's like, okay, yeah, I get you got to do it, because you can't have it where like he's dead forever, you know, like, because you got to open it up just a little bit. I also don't like, after Noriko dies, there's like so much time spent on like before we get to another Godzilla attack, and I get that's not the point of the movie, but like that part, it's like if you just trim that up, like you cut like 5 minutes out, masterpiece. Like those are my two issues, because it's like I'm cool with them having a funeral scene where they're grieving, you know, Noriko. Like that's cool. I like, not cool, but you know what I'm saying. Like it works for what the narrative is trying to do, but it's like after that, it's like, I get it. I get what we're gonna do now. Like, you know, the one of my favorite elements, getting back to the favorites, and it kind of plays into this though just a little bit, is the younger guy who broke his arm, you know, on the ship. How they're like, you know, like, you can't come with us, blah 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 blah. And when I first saw it, I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, this is so stupid. Like, just bring him along. But then when he comes back to help them, it's like goosebumps. Like right now, I got goosebumps just thinking about it. Like, it's such a rallying moment. It reminds me of Star Wars: A New Hope, like when the Millennium Falcon shows up. After they told him, like, you know, like, don't, like, you know, Han, you're only in it for yourself. And for him, they kind of say the same thing, where it's like, you know, you're just being selfish. You should never want to fight in a war. And then he comes in to save them at the end. It's like, dude, this is just so well done. It's so good. But
yeah, this is the only movie that I can think of in a long time. Like, I think of RRR. That's a movie where it's like you get your money's worth. There's not a movie I can think of besides -1 and RRR where it's like, I could pay $20 to see this and I would get my money's worth out of the theater. I don't even know like how much to describe other than it's good. There's so many moments for a Godzilla fan where there's things that you were in awe of. Like, I think of 2014, and the most that, like, when Godzilla came back that you were in awe of is when Godzilla finally shows up at the airport. It's like, ooh, yay, he's back. And then when he breathes fire down the Muto's thing, because that's stuff we've never seen before. But it's like every single thing that -1 did, it was new, it was refreshing, or it was done in a way where it's like, holy crap, Godzilla's using his arms to destroy a building for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
Or him chasing a ship like Jaws, but he's not like trying to attack. He's doing it like he's toying with them.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's just such a good movie.
I love the part where he starts to do his atomic breath for like the first time, and you see those like the dorsal plates or fins or whatever, where they go like, and it's like they're like almost like unlocking in a way. Like it's so nuts. The other thing,
and then they launch back into him like it's like it's a gun.
Yeah. I love, too, the first appearance of him in that movie, because it's like, you don't really know what you're going to get at first. Like, when I first saw that when they're on the island, I'm thinking, like, okay, we'll just kind of get, like, a hill shot again, where he kind of, like, looms over.
That's what I was thinking they were going to do the 54 thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, cool, we're going to get that. And then it's like, oh, my God, this is like a monster from hell, like, attacking them. And it's one of the scariest moments ever. But when you rewatch it, though, something to look for is the fact that he's not actually, like, trying to kill them. Like, he looks scary, but he's more, like, curious. It's not until they actually shoot at him that he goes nuts and tries to actually kill them. Like, he's just kind of looking around, and it's like, yeah, he does smash, like, that, like, outpost building that they have in the watchtower, but that's just because he was scared, like, when they shine the light in his eyes. But it's one of those where, like, you pick stuff up every single time you watch it. Little, like, nuances like that I just think that this movie is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, the part in the IMAX, because the sound is amazing in those theaters. But whenever Godzilla roared like that beginning, that scared the crap out of me. When he just comes out of the jungle, I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
Just amazing. Like the sound design itself too. Like I'm not a big fan of when they reuse the exact old roar. Like Shin Godzilla, it was okay, but I thought it felt off with just how different the Shin Godzilla design was, and then reusing an old roar, not really pitching it in a certain way, and it was monotone. It just felt really off to me.
Right.
But Minus One quite literally was like the best way they could have reused that roar, because it was scary, but it was still like, Godzilla's back, baby.
Yeah. It's I don't like saying masterpiece a lot for movies, because everyone kind of says, like, oh yeah, SpongeBob, sponge out of water, masterpiece, but like this is like one of those where it's like, yeah, so good. It's just so good. I mean, I'm someone who, when I see a movie, it's kind of like I'm more curious as to what's about to happen, rather than like coming in with like preconceived, like, oh, I bet we're gonna see this, we're gonna see this, and we're gonna see this. And so with this, it was just, I was taken aback by everything, which is also why it takes me forever to review stuff, because I'm like, I have to like let the cynicism and actual, critiques kind of come in. But yeah, with this, I was blown away, and it's a movie I could turn on over and over and over, like just keep watching. This is one of those like desert island movies, like if you're on a desert island,
definitely,
and you have, you pick like 3 movies, this is one of them, easily, hands down.
It just blew like everything that I thought of in the like when I saw it, I was like how much did this cost? Because just as in terms of like the CGI was fantastic, as we've talked about. The writing was fantastic with the characters, which we'll get into. The directing was superb. Just the sound design, like everything that you think of like, $100 to $250 million movie. And then you look at that price once you get out of the theater, and you're like, what are we doing over here in America?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the behind-the-scenes video was really telling, because he talked about not having a VFX supervisor. It was just him, and people would report to him. And if they did something, he would approve it. And it kind of cuts the middleman out. It's like, yeah, let's just do that. Like, let's just do that here. What's the big issue? So, I don't know. There's a lot where I think that we could, we meaning like, the American film industry, Hollywood, if you want to use that, even though Hollywood's kind of dead by now, and it's almost Atlanta, Georgia is where a lot of films are made now. But, I think that we should really look to Godzilla Minus One as a jumping off point for how we should be making these blockbuster films at a more affordable level.
Yeah, because Godzilla Minus One only made like 100 to 125. Like, it did good. But it was because it kept its price down. If it cost $100 million, obviously it would have been a bomb.
Yeah. But it's like I've seen movies where it's like, okay, what was the budget? It's like, oh my god, Red One cost $250 million. Like, what are we doing, guys? Meanwhile, it's like, like I can't remember. I think it was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where like that one
it was like 400 million.
It was nuts. Yeah, they said that we needed to make $1 billion to break even. It's like, what do you mean? This was so bad. But it's. I really think that we're gonna get to a point where like Hollywood should take a big step back and say, okay, let's maybe not, drop 400 million into an Ant-Man sequel. Like let's start to kind of scale it back. I mean, I think that A24 has a great model right now where it's like, we're going to do a bunch of like $10 million movies, and hope that one of them is a big hit, which I think is the way to go. But for blockbusters, you obviously can't do that unless you're Godzilla Minus One somehow. So it's...
Well, and even then, it shows that you don't have to be a $100 million budget or $200 million to be a blockbuster. Godzilla Minus One is a blockbuster. It's shot like a blockbuster.
Yeah.
And it succeeded in that.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. One thing I want to talk about, we talked about this, is the Godzilla Minus Color, because we skipped over it. So
yeah, we skipped over it the first time we recorded it.
I didn't get a chance to see it until I bought the Blu-ray, because it was kind of weird here. It was only the original version, and then they did it for like a weekend, and it was like, well, I've already seen it 7 times. It's like, I'm not going to see it one more time for black and white. You know what I mean? It was just kind of...
It was glorious in black and white in the theater.
I watched it on my own. I thought it was very well done, because it's like some of the other ones, like the Mad Max one where they did it in black and white. It's okay, but it's kind of like I could have just turned my TV settings to, like 0 color, and it would have kind of achieved the same thing. Same with Logan, the Wolverine movie, they also did a black and white one, and it was kind of the same problem I had, where it's like you could have just turned it down to 0 color. But this felt like they actually filmed it on old 1950s film stock. I don't know what they did with processing, because film is very hard to emulate. Because dorks like me will see that and go, no, that's DaVinci Resolve. You threw a little preset on there and called it a day. But with Minus Color, it's like I want to know what their whole process was, because it's so fascinating. But yeah,
on a Blu-ray, because I have the Japanese collector's edition from .com and stuff that had like the 9 discs or whatever.
That's the one that I have too. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. But on a TV, I can't really tell the there's not a whole lot of black and whiteness. In a theater, however, like you were able to see the imperfections of, they put like hairs in the footage and also like a film grain. I don't know. I can't tell on my TV. It's an OLED and stuff, but I just can't tell as much as I did in the theater when I was watching it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's like a 4K UHD. It's like one of the cheapo Roku ones, but still. And I have a 4K Blu-ray, so it's like one of those where like I saw it, but I think it's just because I'm a dork and I'm like obsessed with like film, and like the whole like noticing the imperfections for sure, because
it didn't also feel like a director that was going, oh, enchanté, like, I'm going to do my film in black and white now.
Yeah.
It felt like, because of the time period, because of Godzilla itself, and with 54 being black and white, it felt natural when they announced it. Like, it wasn't some cash grab. And then when you see it, it's like, okay, yeah, they actually did stuff here.
Yeah. It was really funny, too, because I did my own Minus Color edit, because I didn't know if it was going to be on Blu-ray, and so I had a digital copy of Minus One, and I ran it through DaVinci, made it black and white, had a film stock emulator that I use for a lot of my stuff. It's okay, it's passable, but comparing mine to that, it's like, mine's complete garbage. Like, it looks terrible, but yeah, it's one of those where I am very happy that it was included on the Blu-ray, because yeah, it's worth seeing if you're a fan. It's good, kind of like supplemental. I don't think it replaces the original by any means, but it's for sure interesting.
I think it would have if they had done what I did. Now, the director actually came out and said this after I said it. But when I reviewed the movie when it first came out with Minus Color, I said the only thing they should have kept in color was when he was charging up his beam.
Okay.
So anytime like his beam came out, like that was like Godzilla breathing color into the world or something like that, or just as a cool thing. And it ended up being the director wanted to do that, and I was like, Guy understands Godzilla fans. I'm just saying.
All right, cool. I was thinking about this. We should talk about the characters.
Yeah, the characters are superb. Like, I can't think of a single movie recently that made me feel emotional for the characters, or that, like, you weren't kind of rolling your eyes at something they said or actions that they did.
Yeah. It's one of those where, like before there were some characters like Captain Gordon where it's like, well, of course you remember him because he's played by an MMA wrestler. You know what I mean? Like, he's
cool. He slapped a woman.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a sword, and a mustache. Like, I want to be him. He's the ideal man. But it's like, and like there's some other ones, like the female pilot from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, and like Dr. Serizawa from the original 54 film, and even from the newer one. Like there are some memorable ones, but you more kind of remember them because they do important stuff with the plot that relates to Godzilla, or they're just kind of cool. That is not the case with any of these. Like they're just memorable characters, and I think it helps that they had a director who knows how to tell good human stories, because he's made a lot of like dramas. Like I know he did Always Sunset on 3rd Street, because the second one has Godzilla in it, and so I only watched them for Godzilla. But it was like, oh, the story's pretty good too. So I think that in having him, I think I even said that too in my trailer reaction video. I'm like, this is the guy that did Always, so I feel like we're gonna have some pretty good human storylines, and I called that one. That's one of my few predictions I've actually gotten right. But yeah, the whole time you're just thinking, I pray these characters are going to make it. And I think a lot of that too has to do with the fact that it's, like the main character has like a kind of wife, not really, and a child, even though it's not really his child. I think that because of that, it makes people more sympathetic to them, but going beyond just the superficial levels, it's like it's just really well told. And I think it's fascinating that a Japanese filmmaker can make Americans like us care about a kamikaze pilot, considering the historical implications. You know what I mean? The fact that we can relate to someone who, historically here in America, we do not look at them, with much love. We'll put it that way. You know what I mean? Considering what has happened in history. And so the fact that they were able to actually garner sympathy from people like Americans who have suffered at the hands of kamikaze pilots, it's like, dude, wow. Like that is like, this should be taught in schools with how to write a quality script with quality characters. I mean, it's insanely well done.
Yeah, it and just like all the little quirks of every single character are amazing. Like, you think that the doctor is just going to be rememberable because he's got like funny hair. Yeah. But then it ends up being like he has those small moments, like he's discussing the stuff with Shigeshima about like, oh, when the war was over, yeah, I kind of felt useless too, or there was not really a whole lot for me as well. Same thing with the way he presents and becomes a leader to everybody. I think Shigeshima is one of the best written characters in media in like 10 years, because the way that you feel for him in the beginning is just because, oh, it's war, he doesn't want to go to war. You kind of feel for that because nobody likes war, but it slowly becomes something where he doesn't feel adequate or doesn't feel worthy of having Noriko or having the kid with her, having that family and being blessed that way. And then once he starts to feel like he deserves that kind of stuff, that's when Godzilla comes in the picture, takes Noriko away. Then he's got the kid, and the acting for everybody was so sublime. Like, even the little girl that oh gosh, I always forget the little girl's name.
Akiko?
Akiko?
I think so. I think that's how you say it. I can't recall this. Yeah.
It's hard when they're not English names, but it like when she started crying when like she was like, "Where's mom?" and then they're like, she had to go away for a little while, and then she starts crying. Like, you're like,
it's really good. Like the acting is crazy good for someone that's like 2. Like they're not even like conscious. You know what I mean? Like it's nuts. It really is.
Yeah.
So,
I just loved it, like, through and through. Like, I just thought, like, holy crap, we're actually getting a character-driven story, because, like you said before, there had been certain characters that were like, like, okay, this is good, this is competent. Like, you had Ford, I think, was the best example we could have used as to like, this is how you do a character-driven story in Godzilla. But this is a whole other level.
Right.
Where everyone has their moments. Everyone has a moment. Everyone has their moment to shine. Everyone has their start and their end to their character, and it's done so beautifully.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I really, really admire too, like how everyone kind of looks the part. Like there's never really someone where it's like you don't look like you kind of belong. Like for example, the naval captain. It's like, yeah, I buy that he's a Navy captain. Like he just looks the part. Like even if it wasn't in the 40s, it was like in like one of the Heisei Godzilla movies. I'd be like, yeah, I totally buy that. He just has that look to him. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but
he looks like something straight out of the Showa era.
Yeah,
like King Kong.
And it's just one of those where everything about it just clicks. It's one of those, like, I hate to sound judgmental, but like when someone tells me that they don't like this movie, I'm like, or like they think it's boring. It's like, did we watch the same movie? Like, I don't see how anyone couldn't like this. I don't know. It reminds me of like the scene of Family Guy when Peter says he doesn't like The Godfather. Like that's how I feel when people like when they say they don't like this movie. It's like, what do you mean? It's like the greatest movie of all time. Like, I don't. Yeah. It insists upon itself.
It insists upon itself. True. Oh man, but I mean, it's so good. And then the thing that I didn't like, a lot of people were saying, was like, oh, Noriko should have stayed dead.
It's not the point of the movie. That's
No.
Yeah.
That ending was so stinking good because, like, I don't get really emotional during movies. It's like, oh, that was a cool part, or oh, this is sad. Godzilla Minus One, like, when you see her and, like, the kid's crying, he's crying, and, she's crying, and then she's like, is your war finally over?
Yeah. Great line. I think so in university, I took this course called screenwriting, and we went over scripts and everything, and the professor said that every screenplay, it's feature length or whatever, is allowed one coincidence. It's allowed one thing where it doesn't really it happens to happen to like sell like the emotions of the movie. And I remember when I saw Minus One, I'm like, okay, that's the one coincidence. Like I'm cool with this because it's like that they used its one kind. Like if there were like a million cop-outs like that where it's like, how are you still alive? Like if like one of the ships got blasted with like an atomic breath, and then like all the sailors survived. You'd be like, what do you mean? Like no. But the fact that Noriko, that kind of like fake out death, is the only one that really happened, it makes sense. And even then, she had like this thing on her neck, like the little like Godzilla, which people say she's going to be the next Biollante. It's like, just shut up. That's not at all what that was supposed to be. It's very clearly supposed to just be it's Godzilla cells that helped her kind of like regenerate a little bit and like not die from the atomic breath.
It's like, I'm the biggest Biollante fan. Thank you very much. And I don't think that.
Yeah, it'd ruin the character. But still, though, like when I saw that, I'm like, that's fine. That's the one coincidence, that you're allowed to kind of like use as like a plot convenience. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But yeah, because trust me, if we want to go over like bad plot moments in Godzilla, there's a lot where it's like, really, we're doing this now? Like this doesn't logically fit with the movie. But yeah, I don't know.
Godzilla flying is most logically the best choice for the next interpretation of him.
If it happens, I'm just gonna like think of like I'm gonna be like, this is all your fault. This is your fault.
I'm just saying, in Godzilla X Kong, when they were in the Hollow Earth, they had that perfect chance of doing it, and they didn't do it.
You willed this into existence, and it's your fault. But I hope though that like. I think they're going to handle it well with the sequel, because I did a video where I kind of talked about, like, my wish list and all that type of stuff, and what I hope they do, what I hope they don't do, and I hope that they don't bring back these characters, if that makes sense. I hope that we get new protagonists to follow, because it's like, let them rest. They've been through so much. It's like, just partially because, like, I don't want to see them suffer anymore, because it's like, you can really only do that unless you give them nothing to do, which is even worse. Like, those are really your two options.
I would love for, first of all, you have to tone down Godzilla a little bit if we're going to do a monster fight, because him shooting that atomic breath, while it's ungodly awesome, you can't do that with a monster fight, because Anguirus or Titanosaurus, dude, blow a hole right through him.
Yeah.
But you got to tone him down a little bit. Still have him be pretty violent or whatever. But I would love to see a violent Godzilla battle like they did with Godzilla Raids Again. Mm-hmm. I think I mentioned this to you, but Raids Again, as in terms of like how they fight, is so chaotic and violent. Like how they're rolling over each other, they're tossing and they're turning, and every 5 seconds they're like scratching each other. It's
visceral. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like animals actually fighting. It's not just two guys, hugging each other and kind of,
Yeah.
Woo. But I would love that if they had like Anguirus or I maybe Gigan, because you have to have it where if you're gonna have Godzilla fight another monster, you either have to have that monster be worse than Godzilla or have Godzilla be good.
Right.
So I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I'm with you. Don't bring back the characters.
Yeah, I'd like it if they made like a trilogy, so they did like 2 more after this, and the second one, make it Hedorah, make it where Godzilla's kind of like, he's really only fighting for self-preservation, and that just so happens to align with humanity, where it's like an anti-hero kind of thing. Like he's like, I still hate you people, but like I'm just doing this just to like not die myself. And then with the third one, it'd be cool is if they set it in the 60s, so the Hedorah one's in the 50s. The third one's in the 60s, and they make it where it's like a 60s retro-futuristic like Mechagodzilla. Like Japan builds it as a line of defense against Godzilla, and we get this like almost like, I hate steampunk as like because it's kind of become cringe now, but like a steampunk Mechagodzilla kind of idea where it's like used with like old outdated technology by today's standards, but in like the 60s, and like, yeah, this makes perfect sense that they'd use it with this, or give it a nuclear powered like kind of engine or whatever, and kind of feed into more of that kind of commentary about Godzilla being an allegory for nuclear devastation. But that's more fan fiction.
No, I think those ideas are amazing. I would like it too if they actually took from the Showa's book and had it where like all these actors that were in the first Godzilla Minus One, just have them play different characters.
Yeah.
Give the guy an eye patch.
Yeah.
No one's gonna, and just say like, hey, these are new guys. This is how the Showa era kind of did it, where it's like you'd have the same actor play 5 different characters throughout the show, and that way you can still get the great acting that was in there.
Right, yeah. I think, too, someone said that he was looking to cast an American actor for the sequel. I don't know, but if he does, I hope to God it's Nicolas Cage, because he's such a huge Godzilla fan, and I feel like he'd bring it.
No.
I feel like it'd be so good, because he has good performances in his filmography.
His paycheck would be the size of the first movie.
It would be. It's only $1 million, because that's the current Nicolas Cage thing, because he has to accept every film role, and it has to be like $1 million, because he owes so much money to the IRS. So if it's Nicolas Cage,
too many Superman #1s.
I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy if Nick Cage is in the next Godzilla movie, even if it's in the MonsterVerse. I hope he's in it.
No, I don't want any American actors, because it's like Godzilla still feels special. It's nice when you can kind of have an American thing, but like when you look at the MonsterVerse, and how different it is compared to when Japan comes out with their version of Godzilla. The reason the Japanese Godzilla movies are always so special, to me at least, is that it's so different than an American movie, and I think that's because the majority of actors are Japanese. And
right.
I think when you have that like one American, it's kind of like the Astro
Steve
Monster.
Martin. Oh yeah, Nick Adams. Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of feels off in a way, unless the story is going to be around him. I don't know. That's one of those things, I guess I'd have to see it in order to be like, all right, this will work.
Yeah. Mine's just more of a goofy what if, because at this point I'm bringing up Mechagodzilla and Nicolas Cage. Like, it's just, I'm just an insane person in a padded cell, just ignore me at this point. Like, this is why I don't make Godzilla movies, man, because they would throw me in like Guantanamo Bay for some of my crazy ideas. Like
I would make Final Wars on crack, basically.
Yeah.
Like I would have Don Fry leaping off a cliff with sword in hand going after Godzilla. Like that would be my movie.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm down. I'll executive produce that. Why not? Let's do it.
Let's do it, dude. The next G-Fest. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So speaking of, I guess, G-Fest, Godzilla Fest stuff, we've got on the docket, unless you have anything else you want to say about Minus One, but we have the Suitmation Anniversary shorts and the Gemstone short films, which premiere at G-Fest in Osaka, not in America, but tried to have a little nice kind of through line there. But so what are your thoughts on some of these? The Suitmation ones or the Gemstone? Start with whichever one you want.
I don't really like the Gemstone ones just because they're kind of
out there.
Not even out there. Like Godzilla, I mean, Godzilla's already out there enough, so I just don't like them that much. I think when you have the Suitmation come out of nowhere all of a sudden, that trumps anything with the CGI Gemstone Godzilla shorts.
Right. Yeah, I definitely like the live action ones more than the Gemstone ones, just because it's cool seeing the suits again. It's cool seeing Gigan, you know, in that sort of classic style, you know, remade. You know, and it's interesting with some of the stuff that they do. I recently made a video talking about if we should retire Suitmation or not, and a lot of people were bringing up the live-action short films, and it's like, I don't mind it if they do it with that. You know, like, we're like, every once in a while they make a little Suitmation short. Like, that's completely fine with me, and I like what they've done. But the Gemstone ones I'm kind of iffy on. On one hand, it's cool that they exist. Like, they're not the worst thing in the world. I think that they're fun to watch, and it's like, you know, oh, we get this new interpretation of Gigan and Megalon, but it's also kind of like, I don't really see a point, because at the end of the day, they just kind of feel like really good fan animations. And so
I thought they were at first, because like the gems, like I'm having some brain aneurysm when it comes to the Gemstone, because I'm thinking of like this one where it was like Gamera and it was called Gemstone, maybe.
I have no clue, but all I know is that like. They're perfectly fine. Like, I don't have an issue with them, but it's like, when you compare them to the Suitmation ones, it's like, I'll take the Suitmation over it because, I don't know, it just, it calls to me as a fan. Like, those feel like being a kid and just smashing action figures together and, like, coming up with a crazy storyline, you know, like, and now Jet Jaguar has Gigan's hooks, you know, like, it's like, you know.
And it's the best. I wish they would do a movie like this, because I don't know how much these shorts cost, but I mean, obviously they're cheaper than the Minus One. But
Right.
I mean, I don't know why they couldn't just have like these be the big battle and then be like, hey, let's connect a little bit of a movie with it in a way.
Just do like a 10-minute long, you know, or have like 2 fight scenes in total. That's all you'd really need, because that's about every Godzilla movie, you know, and just film some live action garbage, you know, and make it like decent and put it out. I'd see it in theaters, you know, like
I would too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know they're gonna come to Blu-ray or something, or for whatever they're gonna come to. I'll probably get it, but I love them. Like, they brought back the like Hedorah being the first one was amazing. That was really, really cool. And then they used the Final Wars suit on top of that, which is awesome.
I love that suit. I love that suit so much.
I love the ears.
Yeah. I think it's so cool that they did it. You know, obviously, it's just one where it's like, I wish we could have gotten more, which makes me sound selfish, but it's like, you know, there are just so many times where I'll like go like try to watch it. I think they're done. Because I think they said they wanted to just do those and then kind of cap it off, because then the last one would have been like Mechagodzilla, but I get why they kind of ended it where they ended it. I don't know, but yeah, as its own kind of thing, because they're putting out a Blu-ray, and I think that kind of signals that like they're done. But so I guess one thing I wanted to know from you is, what was the highest high of Reiwa and what was the lowest low? I mean, you have to be specific with like one of the anime movies if you're gonna pick one.
Okay, so it was probably, because I actually watched the anime trilogy all the way through, so I can at least say that it was so sad to, like, the lowest low for me was when the second one, the Singular Point, and I just stopped watching. Like, I was like, you know what? I am not going to waste my time on this. I know I'm not going to like where this is going.
Right.
Like, I got halfway through. That was the lowest point for me. Like, at least with the anime trilogy, I stuck with it. It's bad. I think it's worse than Singular Point. But at least I stuck with it. Singular Point, I can't even say that. And then the highest high is, I mean, -1. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts from me. What about you, man?
Same thing, except I'm gonna say highest high -1, lowest low is probably the second. I think it's called City on the Edge of Battle, the second installment in the anime trilogy. Just because it's like that Mechagodzilla design is so cool, but we just never see them actually fight.
That's the
And
one where it like has like pinchers in front, right, or something.
yeah,
like...
it's like really spiky, like it has all these spikes going all over. Which
Oh yeah.
I dig it. There was when I was at G-Fest, I think it was like 2 years ago. There was this one kid that was dressed up as Mechagodzilla, like that Mechagodzilla, and it was one of the coolest like cosplays I've ever seen in my entire life. Last year he dressed up as Showa Mechagodzilla, and he had like his hand like spun around 360, like it had the actual.
Oh, that's so cool.
I follow him on Twitter. He's so cool, but dude's like, I think he's like 10 years younger than me, and I'm like, dude, I was like playing Skate 3 on my 360 at that age, and like this dude's like engineering like cosplay suits that are on par with like the Toho stuff. I'll link you his Twitter so you can like
yeah,
attach all
definitely.
of
I'd
his
love
stuff
to
for the
follow
video.
him.
But yeah, he's awesome. So, but that's probably my lowest low though, was that second Netflix kind of anime one, because it was just like so much missed potential, especially because I love body horror so much that it's like you could have done so much with like people being taken over by Mechagodzilla. It's like that's awesome, like mechanized. But one more question then that I was just curious about for you: what would be like your wish list of like a Godzilla project that you hope comes out of the Reiwa era? It doesn't have to be a movie. It could be a TV show, could be a video game, could be anything.
All right, so you kind of touched on some things, but I would love a video game that would be a. I think you would have to do something like a remaster the Pipeworks trilogy, and then do something new. Like get the developers fingers wet with the Pipeworks trilogy, and then do something new with that team. Have them go back to scratch and then come back. That would be awesome. But as far as like a movie goes or something like that, I would love just another great -1 movie, and I hope that's with -2, because honestly, like every time like I go back to a movie now or I watch a movie, it's like, oh, it wasn't as good as -1.
Right.
Like I'm comparing. It's so weird how I'm comparing like every movie now to -1, and I know it's hard to. That's why the Academy is so stupid. How they have like every movie together. You can't compare this indie thriller to a blockbuster. But it's so sad how it's like every blockbuster that comes out now, it's like, oh, $200 million, that's the new Captain America, that's gonna bomb because it ain't making $1 billion to break even, and it won't be as good as this movie. So it's like, I just hope that with -2, like that's the best that I hope for, and I hope it's a good monster fight, because with this, and that's why Godzilla X Kong was so good to me, was that monster fights every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And I hope that's with -2, where it's like, hey, we get a really good monster fight on top of a really good human story. I know that's asking for a lot maybe, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I hope we get more mobile games, and I hope we get more DLC only video game appearances, and that's it. I hope I hope that's all we get from here on out. I hope that's it, you know. And
I love that they came out with that Titan Chasers trailer,
and everyone was like, "Oh boy, here we go!"
Another game. Oh, it's just a mobile game. My friend sent that to me, and he was like, "Dude, it's a new Godzilla game." I was like, "Yeah, it's mobile, you weirdo." And he's like, "Oh, I thought it was for Switch." I'm like, "No."
I still have to beat Kong Survivor Instinct. I started it. I played like 2 hours of it, and I did it on stream. I know, and I said on stream, I'm like, guys, I'll be back tomorrow to finish it. And I don't think I streamed for 2 months after that because I just couldn't be bothered.